Last fall, I pulled more carrots out of a single raised bed than my neighbor pulled out of 3. And when he asked me what fertilizer I was using, I held up a handful of dead leaves and watched his face go completely blank. He thought I was joking. I wasn't. That single 4x8 bed gave me over 60 pounds of carrots. Long, straight, deeply colored roots that looked like something out of a seed catalog. And the only input, the only thing I added to that soil, was decomposed leaves. Not compost from the garden center. Not bags of amendments. Just leaves. The kind most people rake up and throw away every single autumn without thinking twice. Farmers know about this. Commercial growers have seen the research, but they avoid it. And in a few minutes, you'll understand exactly why they don't want you figuring this out on your own. 3 years ago, my carrot harvests were, honestly, embarrassing. Stubby, forked, the pale little things that snapped in half when you tried to pull them. I'd follow every piece of advice I could find. Loose soil, raised beds, consistent watering, thinning at the right time. I did all of it. And still, every season I'd pull up these sad, twisted roots that barely filled a colander. I tried different varieties. Danvers, Nantes, Chantenay, didn't matter. Same disappointing results. I even bought one of those expensive soil testing kits thinking maybe my pH was off. It wasn't. Everything looked fine on paper, but my carrots told a completely different story. Then one fall, I was visiting a friend who lives out in the country. A woman named Diane who's been gardening for over 40 years. Her carrot patch was unreal. Rows and rows of thick, perfectly straight carrots just pushing themselves right out of the ground. And her soil, when I touched it, it felt like nothing I'd ever worked with. It was dark, almost black, and it crumbled in your hand like chocolate cake. No clumps, no clay, no resistance at all. I asked her what she was doing differently, and she said something I'll never forget. She said, "I don't feed the carrots. I feed the soil with leaves and then I get out of the way." That conversation changed everything for me. Here's what nobody talks about when it comes to growing carrots. The soil itself is almost always the problem, and everything the gardening industry sells you actually makes it worse for root crops. Think about what a carrot needs to do. It has to push straight down through the soil for 8, 10, sometimes 12 inches. Any resistance, any compaction, any chunk of uncomposted material, any pocket of heavy clay, and that root is going to fork, twist, or just stop growing altogether. Now think about what most of us add to our beds. Bagged compost that's full of wood chips and bark that haven't fully broken down. Manure that clumps together and creates dense pockets. Vermiculite that floats to the top after a few waterings. Perlite that does the same thing. We're spending $20, $30, sometimes $50 a season on amendments. And for carrots specifically, most of them are doing more harm than good. Commercial carrot farmers know this. Large-scale operations that grow carrots for grocery stores use extremely fine, sandy loam soils, and they spend enormous amounts of money on equipment that pulverizes the ground to a depth of 14 inches or more. They don't want you to know that the secret to perfect carrots isn't a product. It's a soil structure that you can create for free, using something they consider waste. The fertilizer industry doesn't advertise leaf mold because, well, you can't sell someone a bag of leaves. There's no profit margin in telling a gardener to go rake their yard. Every bag of soil amendment, every bottle of root stimulator, every box of carrot-specific fertilizer, that's revenue. And the commercial farmers, they avoid this method not because it doesn't work, but because it doesn't scale. You can't leaf mold a 1,000-acre field. But a backyard garden, a raised bed, A community plot? That's a completely different story. The method is called leaf mold carrot bedding, and once you understand why it works, you'll wonder why this isn't talked about in every gardening circle out there. Leaf mold is simply leaves that have been allowed to decompose slowly over time. Not hot composted, not shredded and mixed with nitrogen sources. Just leaves, broken down by fungi over the course of 6 to 18 months. And the result is something miraculous for root vegetables. When leaves decompose through fungal activity rather than bacterial composting, they create a soil amendment with an incredibly fine, uniform texture. No chunks, no dense pockets, no resistance. It's like nature's own version of that perfect sandy loam that commercial growers spend thousands of dollars trying to create. The science behind it is straightforward. Fungal decomposition produces long chains of glomalin, a sticky protein that binds soil particles into tiny, stable aggregates. These aggregates create consistent air pockets throughout the soil. Water drains evenly, roots slide through without obstruction, and because leaf mold holds up to 5 times its weight in moisture, your carrots never experience that wet-dry cycle stress that causes cracking and splitting. The beauty of this method is what it costs. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Every autumn, millions of tons of leaves fall, get raked up, bagged, and hauled to landfills. That's your carrot bed, sitting in bags on the curb. Free. And I'm not talking about some marginal improvement here. In my experience, going from standard raised bed mix to leaf mold bedding, I went from pulling maybe 12 pounds of carrots per bed to consistently pulling 60 or more. 5 times the harvest from something most people treat as garbage. Let me walk you through exactly how I set up a leaf mold carrot bed from scratch, because the details matter more here than almost any other method I've shared. You need 3 things. Leaves, and I mean a lot of them. At least 15 to 20 trash bags full for a standard 4x8 raised bed. A wire mesh bin or a few large black trash bags. And time. About 6 to 12 months of patience, depending on your climate. Step 1. Collect your leaves in autumn. Now here's where it gets interesting. Not all leaves are equal. You want to focus on maple, oak, beech, and birch. Those break down into the finest, most uniform texture. Avoid walnut leaves. They contain juglone, which inhibits root growth. Stay away from magnolia and holly leaves too. They're waxy and take forever to break down. If you can, run over your leaf pile with a lawnmower once or twice. You're not trying to mulch them fine. You just want to break them into pieces roughly the size of a quarter. This doubles the surface area for the fungi to work on and cuts your decomposition time almost in half. Step 2. Build a simple leaf mold bin. I use 4 wooden stakes and a wrap of chicken wire. Takes about 10 minutes. Make it roughly 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. If you don't want to build anything, just use black trash bags. Stuff the shredded leaves in, poke about 20 holes in each bag for airflow, and tie the tops loosely. Don't seal them. The fungi need oxygen. Step 3. Wet everything down. This is the step most people skip, and it's critical. Your leaf pile should be as damp as a wrung-out sponge. Not soaking, not dripping, just consistently moist throughout. If you're using bags, add about 2 cups of water per bag. If you're using the wire bin, hit it with a hose until water just starts to drip from the bottom, and then stop. Step 4. Wait. And I know that's not the exciting answer, but this is where the magic actually happens. Over the next 6 to 12 months, fungal networks are going to colonize those leaves and break them down into something incredible. You'll know it's working when you check the pile after about a month and see white thread-like strands running through the leaves. That's mycelium, and that's exactly what you want. You don't need to turn this pile. You don't need to add nitrogen. You don't need to do anything except make sure it stays moist. Check it every few weeks and add water if it feels dry. By month 6 in a warm climate, or month 10 to 12 in a cooler one, you'll open that bin or bag and find dark, crumbly, earthy-smelling material that looks nothing like leaves anymore. It should feel like the softest soil you've ever touched. Now here's where most people make a critical mistake. They use the leaf mold as a top dressing or mix it in with their existing soil at a ratio of maybe 10 or 20%. That's fine for general gardening, but for carrots, you want to go much, much further. Step 5. Fill your bed. For a dedicated carrot bed, I use a mix of roughly 60% leaf mold to 40% existing garden soil or sand. That ratio sounds extreme, and it is, and that's why it works so well. Mix these together thoroughly. You want a completely uniform blend with no layers and no pockets. I spend a good 15 to 20 minutes mixing a single raised bed by hand. Take your time here. Step 6. Depth matters. Your blended bed needs to be at least 12 inches deep. 14 is better. So carrots will grow as long as the loose soil allows them to. And in a leaf mold bed, I've pulled roots that were 13 inches long. Something I never came close to with conventional soil. Step 7. Smooth the surface completely flat. Water the bed gently until it's moist throughout. And then sow your carrot seeds directly. Space them about 2 inches apart in rows 6 inches apart. Cover with a 1/4 inch of pure leaf mold, no soil on top. The leaf mold stays loose and moist on the surface, which dramatically improves germination rates. In my beds, I get about 90% germination compared to maybe 60% in regular soil. Step 8, and this is a pro tip that took me 2 seasons to figure out. Lay a single layer of burlap or a thin cotton sheet over the bed for the first 10 days after planting. This holds moisture at the surface without compacting it. Carrot seeds need consistent surface moisture to germinate, and they're incredibly sensitive to drying out in that first week. Remove the cloth once you see the first feathery green tops poking through. After that, maintenance is minimal. Water deeply once a week. The leaf mold holds moisture so well that you'll water far less than a conventional bed. Don't fertilize. The leaf mold is providing a slow, steady release of trace minerals, and the fungal networks are feeding your plants in ways that bottled fertilizer simply cannot replicate. Thin your seedlings to 3 inches apart once they're about 2 inches tall. And then, honestly, just leave them alone. So what kind of difference are we actually talking about here? Let me share what I tracked from my own beds last season. My standard raised bed with regular garden center soil mix produced about 12 pounds of carrots from a 4x8 space. Good carrots, but nothing special. Average length was about 6 inches, and maybe 30% of them had some forking or twisting. My leaf mold bed, same dimensions, same variety of seed, same watering schedule, produced 62 pounds. Average length was 10.5 inches, and the forking rate, less than 5%. The color was deeper too, a rich, almost burnt orange that you just don't see in store-bought carrots. And the taste, I can't even compare it. There's a sweetness and an intensity of flavor in a leaf mold carrot that I genuinely did not know carrots could have. Now let's talk about cost. A single bag of premium garden soil runs between $8 and $12 depending on where you are. To fill a 4x8 bed 12 inches deep, you're looking at roughly 20 to 24 bags. That's somewhere between $160 and $280 per bed, just for soil. The leaf mold? I collected mine from my yard, my neighbor's yard, and a few bags people left on the curb in November. Total cost, $0, and the bed improves every season. Each year I top it off with another 2 to 3 inches of new leaf mold and mix it in. The soil gets better with time, not worse. That's the opposite of what happens with purchased amendments that break down and disappear over a single season, leaving you buying more every single year. Beyond the yield and the savings, there's something else worth mentioning. This method builds permanent soil health. The fungal networks that broke down those leaves, they're still alive in your bed, forming symbiotic relationships with your carrot roots, helping them access nutrients and water more efficiently. You're not just growing carrots. You're building a living soil ecosystem that gets more productive with every season. Every leaf you add is an investment that compounds year after year. Here's what I want you to do before this weekend is over. Go to your yard, or your neighbor's yard, or that park down the street, and start collecting leaves. Even if you're reading this in spring or summer and you missed autumn's big leaf drop, check the edges of fences, the corners of parking lots, the areas where leaves pile up and nobody touches them. They're already partially decomposed, and that's actually a head start. Get them into bags, get them wet, poke holes, and wait. By next planting season, you'll have everything you need. And if you've been struggling with carrots the way I was, forked roots, stunted growth, disappointing harvests, I really think this is the answer. Tell me in the comments if you've ever tried leaf mold for any of your root vegetables. I want to hear what you're seeing in your gardens. If you're interested in more methods like this, I've covered similar free soil building techniques for tomatoes and peppers that use the same principles. And I've also done a deep dive into why fungal dominant soils outperform bacterial soils for almost every vegetable crop. This is what real self-sufficiency looks like. Not buying more products, but learning to see value in what nature already provides. Every bag of leaves on the curb is a 60-pound carrot harvest waiting to happen. You already have everything you need.